Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has caused hundreds of thousands to flee for their lives. Before this current crisis, the United Nations estimated that there are 84 million refugees worldwide. That's more than the populations of Germany, France, and the United Kingdom. Unpacked Refugee Baggage is a new exhibition at UVM's Fleming Museum that tries to put this global catastrophe on a human scale. Keith Silva spoke with one of the co-creators of this exhibition about what it means to be a refugee and how hope endures, even in desperate times.
People have called it architectural streetscapes, sculptures. I don't know, I'm still struggling myself to find a good name.
No matter how you describe Mohammed Hafez's art, all of it depends on scale. Small stories that attempt to answer big questions about life and death, survival and loss. Unpacked Refugee Baggage is a collaboration between Hafez, a Syrian-born artist from New Haven, Connecticut, and Ahmed Badar, an Iraqi-born writer who lived as a refugee for 2 years before relocating to America. Hafez and Badar interviewed refugees who told them about the rooms, buildings, and landscapes they left behind when they fled their native countries before being resettled in the United States. The sculptures in the exhibition recreate those places that now only exist as memories.
I felt I had the medium that could paint someone's story in an artistic way that could reach out to a wide audience. My main goal was not to preach to my echo chamber, but rather art has this ability to reach out to a very wide audience during a very divided xenophobic times that we've witnessed. So it was prudent that I find a medium that speaks for its own self without me speaking much.
While the art does indeed speak for itself, visitors can also listen to the stories that inspired this work.
The headphones are about 20-30 seconds sound bites from the interviews we've done with the families. The ambient sound that you hear is the recordings that I took from my last visit to Syria. And this streetscape that you're hearing is day-to-day life in Damascus. Just think about that. Think about what these families have left behind. It's not all dark and gloom, it's not only war, but they come from a really deep, rich culture.
Hafez's art extends from his background and training as an architect.
My life has no shortage of contrast. On one side, my daytime job was to design these tall mega structures. The firm that I worked for only specialized in skyscrapers and tall buildings. And it's like designing jumbo jets. You get to sketch and work with these mega structures that eventually you see, 100 feet in the sky and 150 feet in the sky, and you go, wow, that was a sketch at some point. So nothing is built on the spot. Everything is pre-planned, pre-drawn, worked out with a huge team of consultants, a huge team of engineers, and so on. On the contrary, what I try to achieve in my art studio is the opposite of that, the complete opposite. So my artwork is actually built on the spot. No preconceived notion, no sketches. Very rarely do I sketch, and I just go build, right? If something visually looks good, it stays. If it doesn't, I break it off, throw it, move on. And that, in contrast to my day job, is very liberating for an artist because you get to just, one hand is the artist that is carving out this piece, but the other hand is the architect that is filling in all the information that you typically see. For example, you break a slab, you break a wall, undoubtedly you're exposing rebar, you're exposing electrics, conduit for electricity, plumbing lines. So all of that at this point is just second nature. That other architect hand is just filling in all that details.
Where do you get your materials?
I get my materials from all over. I use a lot of mixed media found objects. My best place to go shopping is not arts and crafts stores, it's antique shops. I buy a lot of old radios, a lot of old machinery that I take apart. Those old machinery have components that the eye can, at the right scale, can see something else. It might have been a transistor in its old life, but in its new life, it could be a chandelier, it could be at a miniature scale, something else, a water tank. I have about maybe 2 million objects in my studio that I don't fully remember where they came from. So that process in itself is really very fulfilling because there's a surprise around each corner when you go digging for these things. The authenticity of a found object is much more accurate because when you pick up a piece of wood, sea drift wood, right? That decay is real. That time that went into that wood is real, right? So the human eye, when I shape that into a window, actually reads that antiquity in it and reads that time.
Tell me about the suitcases.
I personally felt for a long time that I lived out of my suitcase, just being an immigrant and transient traveler of the world and lived in so many countries. I became very infatuated with the word baggage, both in its physical and metaphorical meaning. Sure. And it turns out that folks, had left these established lives and oftentimes only had 30 seconds to pack whatever they can find, think about it, you got 20 seconds to just pick what you need before that bomb explodes or before that rocket arrives. To a lot of folks, that suitcase became their home. Whatever they took is that, whatever is left. So it was very kind of appropriate to model their stories inside the suitcases. Now, some of these suitcases were donated to me by the refugee families themselves. Some of them were donated to me by previous immigrants to the United States that really resonated with the message. And I had Irish immigrants, Jewish American immigrants, German, you name it, that came to me and said, listen, here's my grandmother's suitcase. She came to this country with it. Take the belonging of yesterday's immigrants and help tell the story of today's immigrants, right? And in that, not only does it warm up the artist's heart, but also helps build the common denominator and reminder that history tends to repeat itself, but we shouldn't really allow governments to repeat these xenophobic laws and travel bans and so on.
How do you define the word refugee?
You can't define a refugee. You can't boil people in one word. It is such a huge global crisis that you can't paint people with one wide brush stroke. You can't create laws and travel bans that welcome people based on their religion, ethnicity, and push people away based on their religion and ethnicity. You can't do that. So I think we're all, in today's world, we're all immigrants of some sort. I keep telling people, this country is not that old. 200 years, 300 years, in the scheme of things, is just a couple clicks. There are doorknobs in Baghdad and Damascus and Afghanistan that are older than 300 years old. So it's prudent to keep fresh a bigger image, the bigger frame in our minds, and remind ourselves that maybe our own loved ones have gone through some of the hardships that refugees go through today. It's on our shoulders, the creatives of the world, the artists. We have a tool that can reach as far east and as far west, can reach far right and far left. Art is so global and universal that it is, I believe, a duty to tell these stories to a wider audience. Folks really have closed their ears to somebody maybe like me named Muhammad, Muslim, Syrian. but they might open their ears for that miniature suitcase instead.
What does home mean to a refugee?
I've been grappling with the word home myself. You know, is it a physical or is it a state of mind? The older I get, I think it's the latter. Home is where peace and tranquility is, and where you can feel part of community and give back. Yes, I am originally Syrian and from Damascus, and I grew up in the Middle East, but I'm equally a proud American citizen today, and I give back to this society and proudly design and build things in it. The world we live in is now this small, so to divide people based on passport color and borders is not really that logical to me. And it's important you mentioned hope. It's important to not only paint a picture of the past, but moving forward. All of these families I stay in touch with, and I continue following their news, and each one of them is doing a fantastic job. And it just really warms my heart to see that hope and to see that we captured a moment when they first arrived here, but where they are today is even much more brighter and nicer.
Our thanks to Mohammed Hafez for sharing his art and his story with us. We want to give a shout out to the staff at the Fleming Museum for arranging our interview. Unpacked, refugee baggage runs through May 6th at UVM's Fleming Museum. Admission to the museum is free. For hours, events, and programs, visit uvm.edu/Fleming. And that's our show for today. Thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.